Welcome to Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery, a conversation held at the intersection of substance abuse, mental health, and everyday living. Your hosts, Marc Regala and Justin Wolf, bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to the table. So welcome to the conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Healing Minds, Stories of Recovery and Resiliency. I'm your host, Justin Wolf, joined by always my co-host, Marc Regala. Marc, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. Just another day. I can't believe we're already in October. It's wild. What are you kind of seeing outside?
Indian summer. Middle of October. Some nice weather still. Halloween around the corner, but what are we, 5 weeks away from Thanksgiving and turkey time and football? So kind of hard to believe. I don't know where the year's gone. But I know Halloween is a special time of the year for you with all the candy consumption in the Wolf household.
That it is. That's where I just shovel down my shame with Skittles. It's fantastic. So have me scrounging through the house, making sure I didn't miss one, just like that mysteriously rolled underneath some counter or something where I'm like, there it is. Wildberry Skittles. Fantastic.
You're like a drill sergeant on Halloween. Another round around the block.
Yeah, especially when you notice the house giving away the full-size bags. Hey, those are full-size bags of Skittles. Don't let that one pass up.
Keep going. We want to get you to 15,000 steps today. In the meantime, you got enough candy to last you all the way to spring.
One would hope. I intend for it to last till spring, but I don't know how it lasts until November 2nd. I don't know how that happened. Things just got
everything in moderation, Justin.
That's what they say. Oh, no. But speaking about managing things and kind of tolerating, highs and lows, we're going to talk about navigating relationships while we're healing. And I think that's a really, pungent topic at this time of year, especially around with the holidays coming up. The weather at some point starting to cool off a little bit, where people like to spend a little bit more time inside with, a significant other or somebody that they're getting close with, especially when we talk about entering recovery or re-entering recovery and kind of giving it another go and learning some different ways to navigate our mental health as well as our substance use and addiction, right? And I think that's the part of looking at, changing these compulsive and impulsive behaviors that can occupy the mind and be very obsessive, that can kind of drive these actions that are very inconsistent with how we want to be living our life and inconsistent with how we want to be showing up for relationships. It's important to kind of take that step back and acknowledge hey, there's a lot of, a lot of individuals who kind of got onto this train who were unknowing passengers when this thing kind of took off. And they didn't sign up. They didn't agree. They weren't aware this is what was happening. And yet our actions that we believe at times only impact us, we need to take a step back and acknowledge hey, other people that we care about, that we're close with, were directly impacted and affected by our mental health and by our use. And I think that's where this can get very complicated, because relationships as they are already challenging. And now you throw in the dynamic and the shift of, hey, I'm doing the work to get myself into a different spot than where I was at beforehand. I recognize kind of what led me here. And now I'm trying to dig myself out of this hole that I kind of find myself in. So I'm going to kind of put this shovel down. I'm going to stop digging and I'm going to start looking around, trying to figure out, how do I navigate life and kind of get back to showing up the way I want to be showing up and not kind of go down those old familiar paths that just seem to emerge in times of stress or when I seem to lose focus on exactly what I'm doing and where I'm going. And I think one of these big shifts that really kind of make relationships really difficult and challenging, not just for the individual, but also for the partner and the family and those close to the individual, is the fact that there are such emotional and psychological shifts that occur in early recovery that as an outsider and as the person experiencing it might not make sense. It can feel like you're kind of on this emotional roller coaster of things going up and down, moment to moment, day to day. that really make things feel uneasy, unpredictable, and unstable. And here you are trying to stabilize oneself as well as helping to stabilize these relationships that have been directly affected as well. And I think, and I just want to kind of talk about, one of those, areas when we talk about relationships, repairing, rebuilding, reestablishing, with oneself and with other people is the idea of trust. Because I feel like that is always the big thing that whenever I've run, any family session I've been a part of, individual sessions, it comes up all the time. I don't trust myself, or the family comes in and says, I don't trust them. And so that's the part when we talk about these trust issues. What's kind of been your experience with that, Mark, as you were kind of entering into recovery, man, where you kind of recognize, hey, like, trust is an area that's going to need a little bit of attention here?
Yeah, I mean, again, like in my situation, there was a lot of starting and stopping. And you used an analogy of being a passenger on the train. Well, when you're in addiction and your mental health is spiraling out of control, it's like a runaway train.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are you on that runaway train, but your family's on that runaway train with you.
Right.
And then you have visits to psychiatric care or inpatient treatment, at a rehab facility, at a recovery center, maybe an outpatient program coming out of that. And, like I said, in my case, it was, multiple starts and multiple stops and multiple relapses until I got to where I'm at right now today. So because of that, even though, your intentions are good, specifically this time around, and you knew what you wanted to do and what you wanted to accomplish and how you were going to accomplish it, through all that starting and stopping, it's natural. It's human nature for your closest relatives, whether it be your mom, your dad, your siblings, your spouse, your children, depending on the age of the children, to have some doubt in their mind because they've heard this story before.
Right. It's like you think about the impact, right? You talk about the intention. The intention is well intended. I genuinely want something different. And they're like, I've heard this before. Like, same story, different day. Like,
Yeah.
what's going to be different? And it's like, hey, I genuinely want this. And then that impact when things, maybe don't go according to plan or something awry occurs. Like that feeling people kind of carry with them, right? They can't remember sometimes the specific events. They can remember that specific way they felt. And that's
Correct.
a hard thing to kind of
Yeah.
let go of.
And I think that it can be frustrating when you're the individual that's going through the struggle because, your intentions are good and you have every intention to get sober, stay sober, and live a life of recovery on the addiction side as well as the mental health side. But then when you hear that doubt or you get questioned, it can be very frustrating. Like, they don't trust you or they're questioning you or they're questioning your ability. But at the same time, like when I work with people now in recovery and they get that same pushback or those same comments from their family, I mean, we talk through that and, we just try to have an honest discussion of where we need to understand where they're coming from. And I think that's the biggest thing is, you have to try to put yourself in their shoes as much as you possibly can and understand where those thoughts are coming from. And, you really can't change those thoughts. Just like with us, if you have an urge or a crave, it's just a thought, but it's our reaction to the thoughts that really is going to make the difference in our recovery. Your reaction to their thoughts, in my opinion, should be motivation to prove them wrong.
Right.
Through your actions, through your daily actions. And over a period of time, when they see that change and they see the change in your daily behavior and your daily actions, they're going to be like, oh, this is different this time. This is a little more serious this time. And I think some of that doubt and some of that questioning will eventually go away.
Right. I think that's time, consistency, like displaying, hey, this looks different than it historically has beforehand. It's not just words, because a lot of times people will be like, I've heard this before. These are just words. These are words, right? Like, what's your action showing? What's the behavior communicating to me at this time? If I kind of take your words out of this, it's sending a message to me. And that message is either, hey, I'm genuinely taking this seriously. You can see it through the steps that I'm taking. Or B, I'm just going to kind of, be passive in my own recovery here and hope, fingers crossed, that this works out. And so that trust issue component there, we were kind of talking about like that, the mistrust that may be there because the words have been said before, the promises have been made, but the execution has been lacking, right? Or the follow through, or just a riff or flare up of the symptoms of the disease, right? Because I think a lot of times, like, that's the challenge, because a lot of these symptoms that flare up, they strike some personal notes with other people who are close to us. And that can kind of lead to some of those not so compassionate and understanding responses at times that we may be looking for or yearning to hear. And yet what we get in response is a very, condemning, demeaning, belittling, dismissive response that can evoke feelings of shame, can evoke feelings of guilt, feelings of remorse, or even feed into resentment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I I completely agree with all that. But I think that at least again, I'm just speaking from my perspective. It just this last time that got me to where I'm at today, there was a complete shift in my brain. I mean, a complete shift in my brain. Where again, I just said to myself that that's going to come. Now, again, it wasn't my first rodeo. I had little stretches of sobriety, and I understood where they were coming from. And I knew going into it that there was going to be some doubt. Everybody was hoping for the best, but they were preparing maybe for the worst, if you will, because they've been down that path before. So I knew that came with the territory. So to me, it's kind of the old cliche saying, actions speak louder than words. I just knew that if my actions matched my intentions, that eventually that would subside, and it did eventually subside. But when you're having a bad day, maybe on the depression side or anxious side, I mean, do you hear a comment? Did you hear a comment about, are you on? Yeah, I mean, you did hear that. I mean, early on, I was so gung ho about maintaining my sobriety that I made an agreement with some loved ones that, listen, I understand that you got some doubt, but here's the deal. If you want to, you can go to Walgreens down the street and get one of those home drug kits at any time, and I'll be more than happy to take that in front of you. I mean, that's the agreement that I made with them because I was so committed this time around, and I did not want to go backwards. And there was a handful of times where that came into play,
Yeah.
but as long as you're living a life of honesty and transparency, doing the right things and maintaining your sobriety, what are you worried about? I mean, I took the home drug kit. I proved that I was negative, and I mean, I say a handful of times, maybe 3, maybe 4 times over the first couple months. And then after that, they knew I was locked in, and they saw me going to the gym, and they saw the changes in my diet, and I was being more present at AA meetings and support group meetings and maintaining my appointments with my therapist. And I think they realized, okay, let's give him some space. This time is different. It appears he's doing everything by the book. And, it just kind of built from there.
Right, because you kind of talk about, hey, even though there might be a breakdown in communication, the actions are still going to be sending a very loud and clear message about kind of where you're at and what you're doing and what your program's looking like.
Yeah, and we talked last podcast when Maggie was on about relapses. And again, I don't think a relapse needs to necessarily be part of recovery. It'd be nice to be one and done, but a lot of times it is part of recovery. And I made that comment about, with each relapse, it's not necessarily a bad thing if you learn something from it. Whether it was a triggering event or you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and you thought that you could handle a certain situation. But I also think part of that too is, seeing how the family reacts to it as well, and be observant, and understand, what you're putting them through. Um, it's easier said than done, but I knew this last time that there was going to be some doubt.
Yeah.
Because my words meant nothing before. I mean, I'm just keeping it real. I mean, there was intention there,
Right.
but at the end of the day, the actions didn't match the intentions, and the words meant nothing because it led to relapse and led to multiple overdoses and led to multiple hospitalizations. I get
Exactly.
that. I understood that, but, also at that particular stage in the game when I got a treatment, I was in psychiatric care. I was an inpatient. Then I went to IOP. So that brain fog was out. I was already sober for a certain period of time. I had a mental clarity that I didn't have during like my using days or what have you, and I was able to piece together my thoughts mentally, and prepare for what the road was ahead. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, because you got a much more clear perspective,
Yes.
and it's not being altered by something being in your system or your mood kind of taking hold and kind of putting like a new pair of binoculars on your eyes in terms of how you're viewing the world. I can clearly see where I'm going, what I'm doing, and how this is aligning with where I'm trying to get to, and being really intentional with each step and each action you take, in the sense of like, hey, I'm kind of building myself back up
Yeah.
here. And I think that goes a long way, especially when there are those communication breakdowns, especially early on, because like you highlighted, man, like there's been so many conversations before in the past pertaining to this. And sometimes even on our end, we can feel like we're bracing and we're preparing for that conversation to come up. And so it's almost like the anticipation's there. And
Yep.
it's like, all right, you're going to talk to me about this again. I know it's coming. And so it gets to the point that I know for a lot of people, right, it can kind of be like, well, why should I even bother telling them anything? Because right now I feel like whatever I say doesn't matter. And they're not going to believe it even if I am telling them the truth. So there is that kind of like that separation that can kind of lead to some discourse, some breakdown in these relationships. And so that breakdown can lead people to be like, well, I'm just going to show them that, or I'm going to disconnect from that and I'm going to pull away. Right. And I think those can lead to some very, high risk situations that are kind of
Yeah.
filled with guilt, resentment, shame, remorse, and like just all this self blame that's kind of like getting poured on, where it's like, this is all on me. This is my fault. So on and so
I
forth. And I
think,
want to say
yeah,
something.
I also think like we're like the growth occurred was the old Mark. If I got out of treatment and, I had a small stretch of sobriety and I was trying to do things, certainly nowhere near the amount I was doing this particular time, but I was trying to make steps or strides in the right direction. When you would hear that doubt, or when you would hear the comments, my thought process was like, well, screw this. I'm just going to go back
Right.
to my old way.
Yeah.
This ain't working. Here I am trying. I feel sick. I've got cravings and all that stuff. I'm fighting, and I can't win.
Right.
Where the new Mark coming out of this way, you kind of anticipated maybe through that growth or through those multiple relapses that you were anticipating that this was going to happen. And I guess where my mindset reset occurred was instead of using that and be like, screw this, I used it as motivation to prove them wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think the other part is like you're saying that, and I think that's huge because it's saying I'm accepting that other people aren't going to have to act the way that I want them to act, and that they have control over their own decisions on how they choose to respond and what they choose to communicate. And that's not mine to own. That's
Yeah.
theirs.
Well, it's like, and it's again, controlling the controllables.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think
All the
that's
things that you can control. I can't control what somebody says about me or thinks about me or doubts me, but what I can control is setting the alarm every morning, going to the gym, being on point with my diet, going to AA, going to a NAMI support group, going to my therapist appointment, do my affirmations at night, my breathing exercises if I'm feeling anxious, and be on point with everything else.
right. You're talking about all these shifts, all these changes, all these things that are occurring that kind of ties into when you're talking about this, right? Like just boundaries, like setting new personal boundaries for ourselves where it's like, hey, these are the things that I need to make sure that I am attending to and I am connecting with in order for me to continue to show up the way I want to be showing up. In order for me to maintain my recovery, my emotional well-being, and just even be present in my day in and day out activities, I need to make sure I'm doing these new things, whatever they might be that are important to me, so that I can continue to show up and be here. And I think that goes such a long way that for the individual, it can be really affirming, very much like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually prioritizing myself. I'm actually treating myself like I'm important. My relationship with me is evolving, changing, and I actually care about like the outcome of this story now, whereas I just didn't care before. Whatever happens, happens. I die young, so be it, right? And now it's like, hey, I actually want to stick around. I actually want to be here. Part of that means I got to kind of keep attending to these things. And now the challenges for everybody else that's kind of been with us throughout these journeys might be like, hey, this is different. I don't see you as much. This is hard. Like, what are you doing? Why are you out of the house for these hours? I'm tracking you, and it says you're exactly where you're supposed to be during that time, but are you there? Right? Like, these are just natural things that come up because it's so different. And so that can lead to people not trusting, might be saying, hey, I need to see you more.
I mean, Justin, I'm just a firm believer that when you come out of a major addiction to whatever that addiction is, and, and a major mental health crisis, that I mean, without my sobriety and without my recovery, I'm nothing. I mean, it caused so much friggin' destruction in my life. I mean, I lost everything, man.
Right.
And I'm getting to the point where obviously I'm building it up over a 5-year period, and I'm regaining a lot of things back in my life. But I worked my butt off to get to that point, But without that, and that can't be accomplished unless I do the things I need to do on a daily basis. I'll probably end up dead. And two, it's going to create so much more chaos before that actually happens. I don't ever want to go through that again. I've had enough pain in my life. I've hit my rock bottom. I don't ever want to go back there again, and I certainly don't want anybody to have to go down the same path that I went down. And I want them to learn from my story, learn from my journey, and learn from the things that I did, the mistakes as well as the good things that I did to get to where I'm at today. Because again, I made things so much more difficult than what it needed to be. I really did. I look back at it now, by not accepting help, not doing help and doing certain things, and and slipping back into that life. I mean, there could have been opportunities, for me to save my marriage and have my relationship with my kids and still have that good job. But then I got to remind myself too. It's like, okay, well, going through all that you went through has made you the man and the human being that you are today. And maybe you needed that redirection because, again, I like the version of me right now so much better than even the pre-addiction Mark. I mean, I truly feel in my heart I'm the best version of myself that ever existed in my 51 years on this earth. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
No, I think that's kind of like, hey, like the relationship with yourself has gotten so much stronger through everything that you've been through and all the actions you've had to take. That is kind of just reaffirmed, like, hey, you're treating yourself like you're worth it. Like, I deserve this. I've worked really hard and gone through this pain and done what I can.
Yeah, no, I actually revamped my little presentation for the hospital when I go speak at patients, and my closing statement is a recap of everything that I've lost. And it sounds like, oh my God, this guy went through so much. I said, but I lost all that, but there's one thing that I found by losing all that, and that was my true self.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing where you're talking like, hey, mental illness addiction, a lot of times there's so much effort and energy kind of put into trying to get away from being with ourselves and being present in our own body that, at the end of the day, it's like, the greatest gift is kind of being able to kind of sit with ourselves and kind of be okay with the person that we're looking back at in the mirror. Like, hey, I'm good. And I can genuinely believe that when I say that, right? And I think that's what we talk about, hope. We talk about, these boundaries and just all these changes that happen, right? Like, it's just all with the intention of, hey, the idea that I can have those relationships with other people. I can have that relationship with myself that I've been looking for, that I feel like it's been missing. and that I've been like yearning for, right? And I think that's the part when we find it, it feels so affirming and so incredible that it's like, I don't want to let this go. I want to do everything within my power to sustain this and keep it here.
Totally agree.
And I think the other part is just learning in that process, like, hey, like that inner critic, that inner judgmental voice that's been ever so loud and always so present. Learning how to quiet it and not give it the platform that it's had in our own head for quite some time by kind of saying, hey, you know what? I got to kind of not take it easy on myself, but I need to be a little bit more understanding of myself. Really acknowledge the full picture and scope of what I've been through, what I've experienced, as well as what other people have been through in this process. And that can help me be more understanding and compassionate to myself and to those that have kind of come along for the ride.
So,
And
you know,
so,
and I get it. I mean, like with family members, and I might be getting the cart in front of the horse here, but you know, they see you going to the gym, they see you going to meetings, you know, maybe you're going to church on a regular basis on a Sunday when that was non existent before. Um, Meal prep and you know
yeah,
things like that. But I mean, you know, you're doing a lot of things, and they see so much change, and you know, some of that change, going to meetings, going to therapist appointments, going to the gym, takes time away
right.
from you know maybe your spouse or partner or whatever it might be, and that can lead to some conversations there. But I guess my comment on that
Yeah,
would be, I mean, if your spouse or partner truly loves you and they were there through the thick of things, you know, they would understand that you're healing and that you're trying to get better. And then from my perspective, I mean, I feel that I owe my partner or my spouse or whoever's in my life or my kids or my parents or my nephews or my sister or my employer the best version of me. And to be the best version of me, I got to do certain things on a daily basis that, you know, may or may not be, you know, in the home. Yeah,
yeah,
meal prep's in the home, eating healthy is in the home, but going to the gym's not in the home. Going to an AA meeting is not in the home. Going to therapist appointments not in the home. But at the same time, you know, you're becoming the best version of yourself, and you owe that to your partner or your children or whoever, and they should want the best version of
yeah.
yourself, especially after everything that you went through.
I mean,
And,
absolutely. You owe it to them. You owe it to yourself, right?
yeah, and at the end of the day, too, I mean, okay, when you're in the weeds of your addiction, now you might be home all the time, okay, but are you home?
Right.
Yeah, you're physically home, but are you present? Or you
Yeah.
downstairs locked in the basement drinking a friggin' bottle of vodka and popping pills while everybody's upstairs watching TV.
Like, man, we got to take you to the doctor. You spent a lot of time in that bathroom. You've been there for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
oh, just rough lunch. I don't know. Like, but it's true because it's like, hey, the lights are on, but not really home. Not really home. So, and
No.
so it's like, hey,
I
if you
mean,
can
I
go
would
hang out
say,
with that body, fantastic. But you're not
yeah, I mean,
genuinely
I
connecting.
would say, you know, yeah, you might not physically be home or around as much because you got to do the things you do to keep your, but the time that you are at home, you are at home.
Yeah.
Okay, you're the best version of yourself. You're able to have conversations. You're able to be present. You're able to watch, you know, TV with your wife or kids or whatever it might be, or help your kids with their homework like you should have been all along. You know, maybe helping make dinner, whatever it might be. Okay, it's a completely different version of yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, does
Right.
it take time? Yes. Does it happen overnight? No. You know, but you know, you just want to focus on the progress. You want to develop those good habits. Those habits are going to become a lifestyle. We've talked about this so many times,
Right.
and I think eventually people are going to see the change and they're going to be like, okay, well, this is what this person needs to do, and the conversations become obsolete. You know, there's ways around it too. I mean, you don't have to go to the gym right smack dab in the middle of the day or on the weekend or whatever. I mean, you go to the gym early in the morning before everybody in the household wakes up. So you're not technically taking time away from them.
Yeah. It's changed, right? Everybody's changing and things are different than they historically have been. And even though like what historically it could have been was chaos, it was familiar. And so to kind of move out of chaos into like stable predictability, things are a little bit slower. That can be, take some time to adjust to as well. And I think
it's an adjustment for everybody.
Right. Where it's like, even for ourselves, like I'm used to chaos and things going boom, boom, boom. Like, but now it's like, it's stable, it's predictable, and it's consistent. Like, okay, this is going to take some getting used to. And I'm going to do everything with my power not to explode what I've created. So let's kind of fight to kind of keep here. And it's easier when those relationships are aligned and feeling as if everybody's kind of working together towards the same goal and intention here. So, no, I think that's a great way to kind of, bring it to a head here and kind of wrap this up as you kind of talk about just being aware of just the impact that, hey, like the behaviors had on our partners, our family members, our spouses, friends, and also kind of framing it in the way of, in order for me to have your back, I need to want and really desire the best version of you to continue to show up. And that means you need to keep doing the things that you have been doing to get yourself to where you are today. And the risk of letting those things go means that we kind of backslide, and we can't, nor does anybody want that.
Yeah, I guess I'll just make one other comment too.
Yeah.
It's like, we use the example of diabetes. I mean, if you truly care about your spouse and you want them to keep their disease in check, or partner, or whoever, it could be a kid, and you're going to, along with them, probably make some changes to support them. So in other words, like from a dietary perspective, what you keep in the house might be a little bit different, or what you cook for dinner might be a little bit different, being respectful of the fact that they're trying to keep their blood sugar and their A1C at a certain range, right? The same thing could be said for recovery too.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is that partners or spouses, when they become engaged and they line up, all of a sudden, the person in recovery is going to the gym, but all of a sudden the partner, maybe not every day, but is joining them a few times per week. Or if the individual that's in recovery is being real cognizant with the food that they're putting in their body, to try to fuel that brain chemistry, all of a sudden it has a trickle-down effect to the other members in the household as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I believe that, when the person that's in recovery really makes those necessary changes, I believe everybody in the house could potentially be affected on a very positive basis as well, because it has a trickle-down effect, from a dietary perspective, the exercise perspective, and even the mindset.
Yeah.
Instead of getting upset, about a certain situation, you let something roll off, because or the way you set a healthy boundary, or just your perception on something that might be going negative. Washing machine breaks down, and the old Mark would have been friggin' screaming and yelling and complaining about money. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, it is what it is, got to control it. Can't control it, right? I mean, just the way you view things sometimes has a trickle down effect to all the members in the household as well. I think that's really important to understand.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's a relationship, and the actions of the other person is going to communicate, hey, I got your back. I care about you. And if I know you're in recovery, why would I keep alcohol in this house? Right? Like, I can kind of let these things go. We don't need to have this here. Anything kind of puts you in jeopardy or puts you at risk. Like, Why would I not take those necessary steps and actions to remove that, to communicate and show I got your back, I care about you, I love you, and I'm going to support you, even if it means I have to make changes on my end, because that's what we do when we're in a relationship with people we care about. So, no, Mark, this is fantastic, man. Appreciate you and all your comments here. And so, appreciate everybody tuning in for more conversations like this. We air these on the 15th and the 30th of every month, so feel free to tune in, set your reminder so you can get notified when new podcasts get released. And until our next episode, everybody have a great, wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you are at, and we will catch you on the next one. Until next one, Mark, take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today on Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. If you're on the journey to find guidance and insights, subscribe now wherever you find your podcasts. Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery is an educational resource, not a substitute for medical or therapeutic advice. The opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of NAMI DuPage. Go to namidupage.org/podcast for links to past episodes, show notes, and to submit a question or topic ideas for a future episode. Until next time, Be well.